Hello, my name is Apipo and I am in Tokyo, Japan at the Asian Conference on Art and Humanities, Cultural Studies and Social Sciences 2024. And I have joining with me today Professor Umberto Ansaldo from University of Hong Kong. Professor, would you introduce yourself for us, please?
Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, the University of Hong Kong is my honorary association. I used to work in Hong Kong for almost 10 years. But I spent the last 5-6 years in Australia at various institutions. My background is in linguistics. For the last few years, I'm really interested in higher education leadership, which was the topic of my talk. And I assume that we're going to talk about it now.
Yes. So, Professor Ansaldo, you gave the presentation, keynote presentation, Can Today's Universities Contribute to a Better Future? Could you give us a short summary of your presentation, please?
Yeah, sure. So I chose that title because lately a lot of universities, especially in Australia, use that as their mission statement. And it's always good to question whether universities are really positioned to contribute to a better future. And then if we assume that they are, then how do they go about doing that? And the gist of my talk today has been that there are many things that universities and that higher education can do to create a better future, but there is also a serious issue with a type of university that I call a neoliberal or corporate university that is pretty much the dominant university in Australia, that I think by basically advancing neoliberal values is in a position of doing quite the opposite at times and actually detract from education, detract from a better future, create debt and leave gaps in education by not financing certain types of studies.
Now we're going to talk about something very big in education field, which is AI. And this is in relation to your presentation. AI is obviously a disruption. Do you see AI as a positive or a negative disruption for universities, and why?
Well, I think I have two things to say. For one thing, just like probably the most famous linguist alive today, Noam Chomsky, I really object to use of intelligence when it comes to AI. Intelligence is a very creative, innovative and unpredictable faculty of humans. I don't quite ascribe it to AI. Having said that, and that might be a minor point, look, any disruption is, whether we like it or not, there to stay. Like any type of change is there to stay. So I don't think we should spend a lot of time evaluating if or how, but rather just embrace it and see how best we can deal with it. It's surely a very powerful tool in many, many ways. For example, it has revolutionized research. If I want to start a new topic on a given aspect of linguistics, in the old days I would have had to do a lot of bibliographical research. I would have had to source a lot of stuff, sometimes in the even older days by traveling to libraries, and then of course digital stuff came on board. Now I can get a synopsis through ChatGPT. It may not be the most accurate or correct, but it's a start that takes me seconds, and then from there I can then work qualitatively and critical with it and move on. So it's already cut down time for many of us. The other thing is that it doesn't really matter whether we like it or not, our kids are going to live with it. So when it comes to our students, we need to put them in a position to understand what it is, to use it well to their best advantages, and possibly to contribute to improving it as well. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
Do you think it affects the existence of universities as an educational institution?
Yes, but not in a new way. Already for many years now, we have moved away from the need to actually pass facts and knowledge that can be found in books and digital sources and the like. That is no longer a job that should take us a lot of time. Now, because it's all out there anyway for everyone to grab, what we really need to focus even more on is providing the depth of understanding and the depth of critical skills so that people know where to find information, how to find information, and how will they evaluate what kind of information is going to be good for them, what kind of information they need, what kind of information they can trust, and what they cannot. And AI is just the latest development in that, and it's even more powerful, but basically we have known this all along. We haven't been particularly agile at shifting the dial, but now we are under even more pressure to do so.
So how can AI help universities to provide a better future for students?
I don't think that necessarily AI can provide a better future, but if we teach our students to use AI intelligently, because as I said earlier, I don't think there is any intelligence within AI.
Right.
The intelligence has to come from humans. Then they will have yet another tool, and quite a powerful tool, for investigating whatever they want to investigate. So it's faster access to data banks that they then, as I said, need to be able to evaluate.
So there are fewer students are now enrolling in universities, and many universities are shutting down. What could be the survival strategy for universities as the institution for higher education?
Yeah, there has certainly been a different type of interest in universities. And I think that goes back to the way in which universities have been able or not been able to adapt to more current needs. It's very true that universities are very slow to change. That has been a challenge all along, and because universities, until recently at least, have encouraged different voices and different ways of working, change also happens quite slowly. But I guess that for one thing, one of the big issues with universities is, as we said in the panel, that they have become expensive in many systems and in many countries. And that is really antithetical to the idea of creating better futures, because you create indebted generations of students. So one of the big issues, which is right now being debated quite heavily in the UK, is how do we go back to a system where we can actually subsidize education in a more substantial way, which is fortunately a system that still exists in continental Europe and in many parts of the Middle East and in some Asian contexts still. The other thing is probably that we are struggling to move to a way of engaging students over a shorter period of times. In today's world, it's become more and more difficult for students to commit a minimum of 3 or 4 years of their lives to something. And one of the things that is being discussed in universities is how do we create shorter, more flexible ways of coming to university, getting some kind of degree, some kind of competence, and then perhaps work for a while, then come back and do something else. So how do we move away from this idea of, going away and living in some kind of bubble for many years of your life, having to pay for it, or your parents having to pay for it? How do we instead create a much more porous and much more accessible way of getting a higher education by also carrying on with many other aspects of your life? For example, the fact that you will want to be a YouTuber or an influencer at the same time as you might be doing a degree in something, and the mere necessity of having to work if degrees keep being so expensive. So I think there are lots of things that we could be thinking of in terms of making access to university a much more digestible proposition for many different students of different financial backgrounds.
Now, I want to talk about global citizenship. Does global citizenship matter in creating a better future? And if so, what can universities do to promote or encourage global citizenship?
So, to the first part of the question, I think that if we don't really understand global citizenship, and if we don't approach the challenges that different parts of the world, different types of populations are exposed to, we keep locking ourselves down in divisions of ethnicity, nation, caste, politics, which leads us to a fragmented world and a world that thrives on competition. And when you thrive on competition, you thrive on basically a mistaken assumption, because when two parties compete, one of them is wrong because they both think they will win, and clearly that's not going to happen.
Right.
And so we never worry about the losers. So I think that for one thing, we need to work much more together in terms of shared good and shared wealth than in terms of who is going to be first and who's going to make the most of it, and we forget about the losers. So absolutely, we need to talk global citizenship. In terms of how universities should leverage it, in many ways they already are. Some are doing so seriously, some are doing that just to make money, but we have everything that we need to have global education, in the sense that we are well connected, we have many partnerships, we have leagues of universities, we have virtual conferences, talks, we have all the technology, the network that we need if we want to make it happen. Is that we often don't have the will, and we often don't have the vision. That we don't have the vision is just bad luck. That we don't have the will, it again goes back to the fact that we are more interested in outcompeting other institutions rather than working together with them. But other than that, I've certainly experienced global classrooms. I have experienced development of global programs where students come together virtually. These are all things that are very possible. We just don't do them enough.
So last is about leadership. What qualities do you envision to be essential for future leadership?
I think the answer is easy. It's how you get there that is so difficult. I would say, three things: honesty, respect, and vision. And when I look at leadership, whether within universities or beyond, and perhaps even more so beyond, I often find that those three qualities lack massively in leaders, and that in itself is probably a research project that we should all embark on in terms of understanding why. But as I was saying in the panel, we need to realize that our students, especially at university, these are already young adults, they are not children, they are not clueless. They see the environment that they are educated within, and if what they see contrasts with the messages that we are trying to pass on to them in terms of ethics, in terms of global values, in terms of respect, then they will just walk away from university being very cynical. So it's not just enough to talk the talk. Our leaders need to walk the walk. And you just look at leaders around the world and take some prominent examples, and you will see that those are really not the right people to be where they are. But that's the challenge that we have. So just to reiterate, I would say respect, honesty, and vision. These are three fundamental things that I would want to see, at least in the future leaders, since we don't have them in many of our current ones.
Right. And last but not least, the message for future IAFOR conference attendees.
I actually think that it's really good to come to these fora because of what Joe said in terms of the interdisciplinarity, the diversity, and how we want to be open and respectful and honest about who we are and how we do these things. And I think having these themes as we are having today is great, and we actually touched upon a possible future theme already in the first day here in terms of another of the big questions. So we are worrying a lot about how we do things within universities and what universities can do about the future. And one thing that came up in a very interesting way was the need to talk to power and to talk to politics and to talk to existent leaders who run us in many ways. And so possibly for future IAFOR meetings, whoever participants or in terms of our own organization to think about that and to move in that direction would be really interesting.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.